name is Brock Willard, and I'm a composer. I'm additionally the graduate student for the theory, voice, and choral areas here at Pittsburg State University, and I'm currently finishing up the first year of my master's in choral conducting. I think what interested me in music is the fact that it's a very interesting art form in the regard how paintings, they take place in space. You know, you look at them, you can see all of them. Music takes place in time. You can't ever look at all of a piece of music at once. Music, regardless of the culture, can have sort of emotional effects. And that's another reason why I really like music, given that there's so much diversity in music that's out there. You know, for many, many years, I found the art form of opera sort of distasteful, and not for any reason. It was sort of illogical. And then I performed in one of the operas here at PSU. I was the general in Pirates of Penzance, one of the hardest roles I've ever done. Then after that, I'd always been drawn to opera as a storytelling vehicle. And so sort of that narrative power really drew me to writing opera. And this opera particularly sort of possessed me, and I had to finish it. So my opera is called The Binding of Isaac, and it's of course based very loosely on the biblical story of the Binding of Isaac. The poet Wilfred Owen, he has a paraphrase of the original story that's vehemently anti-war. And in the opera, Abraham, he receives a vision from God, basically saying, there's a great war coming. Your son Isaac can either die in this great war and die horrible, painful death after seeing horrible, painful things, or you can sacrifice him and spare him that horrible fate. And so Abraham, being a loving father and an obedient follower, goes to slay Isaac. Isaac escapes, and the angel from the original story comes in, and she's furious with him. And Isaac, he finds himself in a cave. The narrative from the original story sort of flips, where Abraham is very much the central character in the biblical story. In this, Isaac sort of becomes a very central character because he's the one who makes the choice to eventually go back to Abraham. The last two lines changes the ending. It sort of goes, and Abraham would not sow, and slew his son, and half the seed of Europe, one by one. It's not a happy ending. it's kind of a resolved ending, but it's certainly not a happy ending. I was very pleased when I finally put the double bar on the piece, when I finally ended it, because it was just such a momentous achievement as a composer. Most great composers throughout history have written opera, and it's something I've always wanted to dip my feet into, and I'm glad that I did. I like the opportunity to sort of talk to people about the opera and sort of get their reactions, because it's kind of strange to have the poetry of this World War I poet and the Binding of Isaac from the Bible and mash them together. That's a little odd. The biggest thing about writing it and sort of, looking for ways to get parts of it performed or even the whole thing is really about unlocking, my potential and the potential of other people. As I've sort of thrown it at people to look at, they sort of have to overcome the challenges in the aesthetic of the opera. It's a very intense musical experience. It's like they've opened up a new world. There's a difference between following orders because you've been told them, and following orders because you make the choice to follow those orders for another reason. And that's one theme that I think people should take away from the opera. Another sort of aesthetic theme that I want people to take away from it, especially of my music in general, is that a lot of music, especially a lot of opera from the 20th century and even the 21st century, is sort of like coffee. I'm not a coffee drinker. I've tried it, but people have told me that it's sort of similar in the regard that the first drink is usually not very good. It usually is like, I don't want to do this anymore. But once you get more used to it, it becomes more palatable. Lots of 20th century and 21st century music is very much like that. And the third thing that I would say, just supporting local musicians, local composers, people you know, and in the art that they are trying to produce. I'm Brock Willard, and you can find more of my music at brockwillard.com.